Today is Ask an Atheist Day. Okay, for those that stayed, I'm an atheist, and I think I'd like to answer some of the questions I've had over these 10 years that are the common questions. So the first question, I think the most obvious question, is what is an atheist? I think people have weird concepts about what an atheist is. They think atheists, eat babies, or I don't know, have satanic rituals, or are pagans or druids, or effectively Satanists. But of course, all of those things are the exact opposite of what it means to be an atheist. An atheist is nothing more, ladies and gentlemen, than just someone who doesn't believe in the supernatural. That's all it is. By telling you I'm an atheist, you know nothing more about me than you knew before, except that you know I don't believe in the supernatural. That's all you know. You know nothing about, what I stand for, or what I value, or what I enjoy doing, or how kind I am, or how evil I am, or how much sport I play, or you know nothing about me. And that's important to understand about atheism. It's not a thing you gather around. You can gather around an ideal like humanism, but atheism's not an ideal. It's just whether you do or don't believe in the supernatural. If you ask someone, do you believe in God? And they say, I'm not so sure, they're an atheist for all intents and purposes. Or if they say no, they're an atheist. That's all it's about, okay? I happen also to be a humanist, and that's a lot more interesting, a story. And I happen to be a liberal Democrat, and that's a lot more interesting a story. My atheism's really simple. It's just that one notion. I don't believe in the supernatural. It's nothing to fight for. You don't create armies around atheism. You can create armies around religion, because that's a notion, it's an ideal. But atheism is not that. So I just want to lay that out. Now, what does it mean that I don't believe in the supernatural? People's next question is, but how can you not believe in the supernatural? Surely you must believe in something, people tell me. Why? Why must I believe in something? The way atheists see the world, and specifically sort of skeptical atheists or scientific atheists, are that things are either true or they're not on a spectrum of probability. That's how we see the world. So let me give you some examples. I could tell you with absolute certainty that there is not an invisible unicorn standing right over here. Why do I think that there's not an invisible unicorn standing over there? Because the probability is so minuscule, not zero, okay? So understand, this is how a scientist thinks. They're not zero. It's not a zero probability idea that there's a unicorn standing next to me, but it's so minusculely small that I may as well go about my life knowing that there's not a unicorn standing there. You see what I'm saying? Could I be proven wrong? Could one day someone come to me and say, here, I have evidence that there is, in fact, an invisible unicorn standing next to you? I'd be happy to look at that evidence, and if the evidence was compelling, the probability would grow, and I would be more inclined to think, okay, maybe there is a unicorn standing there. But at no point do I have to believe anything. So when people say, don't you believe in anything? My answer is, yes, I don't believe in anything. I don't have to believe in anything. I either know something to be true at a high probability, or a medium probability, or probably not true at a high probability, right? So it's not something I have to believe in. It's about evidence. Do I believe the sun is going to come up tomorrow morning? It's not a statement of belief. I either understand that it will come up. I know, i.e. I know it will come up. Why? Because there's evidence. I've got thousands of years of evidence that the sun comes up. I also know how astrophysics works. I know what the sun coming up means in an astronomical sense. It's as the Earth revolves around the sun, and so none of that requires faith. It's just simply a matter of understanding. I understand that the sun will probably, at 99.9999% probability, come up tomorrow. There are other things that are not so probable. Will my wife smile at me when I walk through the door? Well, It's reasonably probable. There's about a 70% probability. Is it something I have to have faith in? Do I have faith that my wife will smile at me? No. I might have hope. I hope that she'll smile at me, but that's different to faith. Faith is something entirely religiously based, and I'll come back to that notion in a second. So it's not about me having faith. It's about me knowing or not knowing something. And can I change my mind? Absolutely. And that, I think, is the difference between the average atheist and the average religious person, is I'm willing to change my mind. If I see evidence, I change my mind. But it has to be compelling evidence. Evidence has to meet some criteria. For instance, an anecdotal evidence doesn't count. The fact that your friend Joe saw an invisible unicorn doesn't make that evidence I care about, right? When I say evidence, I mean testable, repeatable, compelling scientific evidence, logical evidence, mathematical evidence, okay? So I don't believe in the supernatural. Why? Because I don't think there's evidence. I think the probability is minuscule. I think that believing there are ghosts or angels or demons or gods is the same as believing that standing next to me over here is an invisible unicorn. I think the probabilities are reasonably equally the same, right down at 0 point something percent. One day, someone might discover something we could somehow define as a god or an angel, excuse me, or a demon. But when that day comes, the evidence will follow it. The evidence will be there, and I'll change my mind if the evidence is there. And if the evidence is not there, we're in the same position I am today, which is I don't think there's a God, right? So I'm an atheist. So that's all it means. That's what an atheist means. Let me answer some other questions. People say, do I hate God? No, I don't hate God because I don't believe there's a God. I believe there's a God in exactly the same way as I believe there is a Santa Claus or an Easter bunny or an invisible unicorn. That I just don't. I just go about my life knowing that that probably is not the case. So I don't hate God. I'm not angry with God. There's nothing to be angry with. It's like asking, are you angry at Santa Claus for not bringing you a present this year? There is no Santa Claus. I can be angry that I didn't get a present, but I'm not angry at Santa Claus. I'm just angry at life, okay? And so sometimes I'm angry at the world. Am I angry that millions of people go hungry? Am I angry that people are dying of the coronavirus? Am I angry that we don't help each other enough? Am I angry about things? Yes, I am. Does that mean I'm angry at God? That's just a silly question. Of course not. Okay. What's another question people ask me? People ask, so what have you got against religion? So this is a bit trickier than the previous question, because I do believe in religion, and it's not that I believe in it. Religion exists. It is real, and it has real, tangible impacts on the world. The fact that religion exists certainly doesn't mean that the gods and supernatural ideas of those religions are true in any way. But religions have a huge impact in the world. And having been in a religion myself, I was in ministry for a good 13 years. I was an evangelist, at times considered prophetic, and at times considered a spiritual teacher. And I was a pastor at times. So I was deeply embedded in the ministry. And a true believer. I mean, in those days, I really did truly, deeply believe that there were supernatural things. And it was belief. It was faith. It was faith. Faith is that weird get out of jail free card. You don't need any evidence. You just have it. But it's ridiculous to have faith, right? Because if I have faith in the spiritual notions of Christianity or Islam, well, then why shouldn't I have faith in the Easter Bunny and Santa? They're all at equal levels of probability. It makes no sense. So, but anyway, faith doesn't make sense, and people have it anyway. It seems to be geared into our genetics. So faith might have been useful a few thousand years ago when we were running around the Serengeti, and we had to kind of just go on instincts with everything. There wasn't a lot of evidence built up in our human understanding of things, right? So everything was faith-based, and we just kind of went with it. It had its place in history, but faith doesn't have any place now. We're an evidence-based society, and we have rapidly progressed because of that evidence-based approach. Anyway, back to the religion question. So what do I have against religion? I have a lot against religion. Levi, come, Levi. Come, there's nothing to bark at. We're in the corona. There's no one on the street. Levi, come here. Okay. He's just seeing ghosts. You see, even Levi has faith in ghosts. I don't know why he's barking. What was I saying? Religion, yes. So religion's been the cause of great harm in the world. And people say, yes, but so has atheism. And I say, atheism's not the cause of anything, right? People say, but what about Lenin, at least Stalin? What about, what about the Communist Party of China? What about Pol Pot? These people were atheists. Yes, they were atheists, but that's the equivalent of saying they played chess. It wasn't their atheism that made them do those things. As I said right at the beginning of this section, the fact that I'm an atheist tells you nothing about myself. It doesn't tell you how good or bad I am. So are there bad atheists? Yes. Are there good atheists? Yes. Are there bad Christians? Yes. Are there good Christians? Yes. Okay. But the difference between religion and not religion is that you can rally behind religious notions, idealistic notions, like humanism, like liberal democracy, like Christianity. Feel free to take those on if you don't like the ideal. But don't take on atheism. Atheism's not a thing to take on. It's an irrelevant thing. And Stalin didn't kill 50 million Russians because he was an atheist. He killed 50 million Russians because he was a dick, because he was evil, okay? Because he was powerful, and power corrupts absolutely. But he didn't raise flags saying atheism. He raised flags saying Stalin. He was mad, right? And so people need to understand that distinction. You can't motivate people with atheism, but you can motivate people with religion. Religion is a motivational aspect. So if a religious leader stands up and says, God has brought us to this land, we need to take it and kill all the women and children like Joshua from the Bible, well, that's going to motivate people to do evil things in the name of their God. And people have done evil things in the name of gods for millennia. And that's the problem with religion, that people will otherwise do good things. But it takes religion to make a normal person, a good person, do evil things. It takes religion. And I was in the ministry, and I did evil things. And I'll explain those evil things in a second. But it took religion to make me do them. I have a heart for people, and I just love people. And for the most part, that's what I try to do through religion. But there were many times where, for the sake of my faith, and because I believed in notions that were untrue, I told people things about their lives. I prophesied into them, and just confused their lives. I said things that I shouldn't have said to them. There were times when I would counsel people who loved each other, but one was a Christian and one wasn't, not to get married because they shouldn't be yoked with unbelievers. Absolute bollocks, bullshit like that. And that's like still small stuff, but I wept when I became an atheist about the stuff that I'd said and done. The amount of times I told people to give their money to the church thinking that God would bless them in return. But God, there's no God, and there was nobody to bless them in return, and people were taking their hard-earned money and throwing it into a society and a system that just stood for nothing, and it meant nothing. And so I have huge regrets about all of that. But, take it further. The people who bombed, who took over the planes at 9/11 and bombed the Twin Towers, those people weren't evil people. They were people that thought they were doing the right thing because of their God and their religion. They were just literally being good, Bible-believing or Quran-believing Muslims. And the Crusades, those wars were not evil people. They were just otherwise good people who thought their God was the true God, and they were fighting for that thing. And that's the problem with religion. We see it in America today. Just swathes of Americans who, because of their faith, are making stupid decisions about how they educate their kids and how they look after society and how they deal with science and what they put their money behind. And it's oh God, I can't even tell you how morbid I get when I look at the TV and I just see what religion is doing to the United States. It's crazy. It's absolutely mad. So, yes, I have an issue with religion. Religion causes good people to do bad things. And and you say, yeah, but what about that little Methodist lady who goes down to the church and she wears her hat and she has tea afterwards with her friends? She's not evil. I'm not saying she's evil. She's great. I don't know who that woman is, and there are millions of those, I'm sure. But they give legitimacy to a system where the people on the edges of that system, the people with bigger personalities and more risk-taking personalities, are willing to go out and bomb Twin Towers, go out and crusade. They get their legitimacy from the little Methodist lady who gives her tithe every week to the church. That's what I have against religion. I think the world would be a much better place without religion. I really do. And so I have no respect for religion at all. None. I actually despise religion. Do I despise? Here's the next question. Do I despise people who are in religions? Not at all. I love, most people are religious. So how could I love people, right? I think of some wonderful people I work with, deeply religious people, but I love them. They're great. They're amazing people. For all intents and purposes, they are the salt of the earth, and they're amazing. But they've got their life, and they've taken this one area, and in all other areas, they are logical and rational and reasonable and evidence-based. And if I were to go and say to my friend who I work with, your wife is having an affair, he wouldn't just believe me. He would want to know why I'm saying that. He'd want evidence, and he'd want compelling evidence, and he'd want testable evidence before he believed that claim. And yet, when he goes to his temple or his church, it's like cognitive dissonance. He just separates the rational from this special ticket, this get out of jail free, I have faith ticket. And for the most part, even that's not harming everybody and whatever, so he's going to do it, and there's nothing I can do to change it and whatever. Do I hate him? Absolutely not. I despise the religion he serves and all the religions that all the friends I have are part of. But do I love them? Of course I love them. And so people misunderstand atheists. There's this term, militant atheist, that's come about. People ask me, are you a militant atheist? It's an oxymoron, ladies and gentlemen. You can't have a militant atheist. A militant atheist would be people who march in straight lines with guns and shoot people because of their atheism. And that's just a nonsense idea. There's no such thing, right? There's no militant atheism. When I go online and say, I don't believe in God, it's a short sentence that everyone considers to be militant. But when they go online and say, I believe in Jesus, that's perfect. Everyone must go hallelujah, and that's wonderful. I believe in Allah. May God bless you. That's fine. They're allowed to say whatever they want, and everybody must just chill and be obliging about that. But if I go on and I say, I actually don't think your religion is true. Oh, my God. Jeez, the world must come to an end. And I'm militant atheism. That's not militancy. That's me having an opinion. That's me telling you how my brain works and how I think. And there's no militancy at all. I don't want anyone harmed. I don't want anyone hurt. I'm not giving money to any cause other than causes like feeding people. And I hate guns. So, I think we have enough evidence to say that having guns just creates more of a violence problem. So in no way could you call me militant. And I don't actually know a militant atheist. So I think the term is nonsensical. It's a term created by people who are offended that there might be humans in the world that don't believe exactly what they believe, or don't believe in their version of the supernatural, and that offense drives them to want to demonize people like me. So I hope I've convinced you that there's no militancy in my atheism. Am I passionate? Yeah, but I'm passionate about everything. You've seen me singing, you've seen me doing these updates. I don't have to be talking about a God or a religion to be passionate. I'm passionate about 92 things, including cats and whiskey and sex and I don't know, entertainment and like just all sorts of things. So that's not militancy. That's just passion. That's just personality. Okay. What's another question people have asked me before? People have said, but there is evidence for God. And I say, okay, firstly, split your question. Is there evidence for a God or is there evidence for your God? Okay, because often people want to give me weird notions of evidence for something that exists. I mean, I've heard so many people that are kind of agnostic and they say, well, I don't believe in nothing. I believe there must be something bigger than us out there. I go, well, elephants are bigger than you. I'm happy that you believe in elephants. Like, what do you even mean by bigger than us? You mean other intelligences in the universe that are not human? Well, that's fine if we find those other intelligences in the universe that are not human. Well, then we'll say hello. but that doesn't mean they're supernatural. That doesn't mean that God. What does supernatural even mean? You know what supernatural means? Supernatural means that there are things out there that break the laws of physics. Of course, the laws of physics are things we're only starting to grapple with and get our heads around as we go. But the moment something breaks a law of physics, which happens all the time in science, we find some particle that doesn't fit our current model, and then we go and look into that thing and we go, this thing's breaking the law of physics. Then what we do is we go, okay, you know what? We were missing a piece in what we thought were the complexities of physics and the laws, and we're going to make adjustments to the model, right? So when we meet this thing that's bigger than us, what will we be meeting? We'll be meeting an alien, maybe another kind of creature in the universe. And when we do, and we study them, and we understand how they tick, we're going to open our model to understanding this is the new model of how physics works, right? And again, that thing won't be supernatural anymore. The second we understand something, we take it out of the supernatural bucket and we put it into the science bucket, right? So, no, I don't think there's anything bigger than ourselves in a mystical sense. And I think there are trillions of things bigger than ourselves in a pure physical scientific sense. Like woolly mammoths are bigger than ourselves. Although they don't exist right now. They used to. Maybe we'll bring them back through genetic coding, Anyway, back to that original question. So they say, but there is evidence, and I say, so what's the evidence? And and people give me all sorts of reasons, and we know they're all the classic tropes, especially the Christian tropes about why there is a God. But this is not evidence; it's like wordplay, Firstly, I've heard people, especially in the Catholic sort of realm, saying, yeah, but you can't explain that statue of Mary in some place in Italy that cried blood, some years ago, and 100 people saw it. I say, nobody saw it. Nobody went to test that blood. Nobody came back. Nobody found out if there was anyone in the church pouring the blood down some little tube at the back. Magic tricks are common. Can hundreds of people see the same magic trick? Yes. It's all anecdotal evidence. Okay, were there any scientific authorities present to test anything, to check the environment, to do detective work on it? And if the answer was, well, they weren't allowed in, well, then I don't take your evidence. That's just anecdotal nonsense. Okay, if people want to tell me that the evidence is that everything is so perfect, look at these beautiful trees. Look at this gorgeous leaves and trees. Someone once screamed at me online, and by screamed at me, I mean they wrote in huge capital red letters with underlines in bold. Can you make a rose, Deon? Can you? Exclamation mark, exclamation mark. I was like, oh my God. Can I make a rose? No, I also can't bake a Rocky Road cake. But what has that got to do with anything? Can I have a baby? What? No. What has that got to do with anything? How does that prove God? Obviously, what they were getting at was, well, we as people can't make a rose, but God can, and He did, and that's why there's a rose. But you're just jumping to conclusions. You see a rose, you see that it exists, and you therefore conclude that something supernatural must have made it. Why? I mean, we know exactly how natural selection works. We can literally recreate the evolutionary cycle of natural selection at high speed in bacterial environments, so we can see evolution happening right in front of our eyes. We know exactly how evolution happens over millions of years and how mutations cause change, and the mutations that help that organism replicate and reproduce are the ones that survive and get passed to the next generation. We know how this stuff works, and we know that roses are just along an evolutionary process, and that in a million years' time there might not even be anything like what we now think is a rose, and there might be, newly formed different versions of the thing. For instance, a banana as we know it is this beautiful, smooth, yellow thing and it's just so gorgeous, and we go, oh, maybe God, made a banana, but God didn't make a banana. We know that, we already know, we've got recent enough history to know that bananas didn't always look like that. Bananas look very different. And through playing with the genetics of the banana and artificially selecting for the smoother and smoother bananas, just like we do with dogs, we artificially select for different types of looks and feels. We take a group of hairy dogs, and then we get their babies, and we take the hairiest dogs and breed those with other hairy dogs, and then we take the hairiest offspring, and when we keep doing that for 50 generations, you have giant, shaggy, hairy dogs that don't actually appear in nature. But it shows you how nature does it over millions of years, right? So, no, a rose doesn't prove that there's a God. You know what a rose proves? A rose proves that there's a rose. That's what a rose proves. Okay. That's not evidence. But what about intricacy, people say? What about the eye? The eye is so complex, and you can't have like versions of an eye. The eye has to be whole and in place. God has to have made it as it is for it to be useful to us. Utter rubbish. All the way through the natural tree of creatures, we see different kinds of eyes. We see eyes that are nothing but a dot, a speck in an insect that pick up some light and motion. We see eyes that show a little more complexity. We even see eyes within eyes, like compound eyes. And these have all evolved over time. Any kind of eye that shows any kind of light, that gives you any kind of signal as an organism, is an advantage in the natural scheme of things, because it allows you to duck out the way when something's coming for you, and the organism that doesn't have it doesn't duck out the way. So that organism dies, and the organism that ducked out the way lives to have babies and pass on his moving eye mechanic to his children, and they all survive, and all the ones that don't have it all die, and before you know it, the only population that's left are the ones that have that eye. And then another mutation happens, and then that becomes the population that takes over, and so things become more complex, and now you have a complex eye. It certainly does not prove that there's a God. If anything, it just gives us a solid indication that evolution is exactly how these things happen. People sometimes ask, don't you feel the power of God? Haven't you ever felt, you were in the presence of something supernatural? Folks, I study psychology, and I've been a change manager and a counselor effectively my whole life. I know something about how the human brain works and how we perceive things. So if you ask me, haven't I ever felt something, the numinous, something spiritual before? My answer is, when I was a Christian, I interpreted it that way. So the answer then would have been yes. What I felt was the wonder and the glory of God. So if I was in a worship service and I was playing music and, I can feel the Spirit of God, I wasn't feeling the Spirit of God. I was just feeling amazing. I was feeling the chemicals rushing through my brain. My brain was interpreting my elation as something, again, bigger than myself, right? As an atheist, I still have those experiences. When I'm on stage playing music, I feel the numinous, right? I often say to people when I'm doing public speaking that something weird happens, that I step on stage and it's like a new brain kicks in. I know all my words, my vocabulary's there. I speak much more eloquently than I do like I am now in front of the camera. Something happens when I'm on stage, and there is nothing I cannot think about, cannot talk about. I often even do this exercise. I say, give me a topic right now, any topic, and someone from the audience throws a topic out, and for the next 5 minutes, without even a hesitation, I speak eloquently about that topic. If I was a Christian, I'd go, the Spirit of God comes into me, and I am somebody else at that point. God speaking through my mouth. But of course, as an atheist, I know that that's not true. What's happening is that I'm in the flow. That's a word even scientists use. We're in the flow, right? Your brain kicks in because of the adrenaline and the gravitas of the situation. You feel different. You have new chemicals moving through your brain, and they enliven everything. They bring things to memory. They give you energy. You feel like you can run around the block, right? The same thing would happen right now if I told any one of you, genuinely, you have just won the lotto. You have just won 20 million rand. And it was true. You would probably just be in denial for a few moments, and when the notion kicked in, when you looked at those numbers and you realized I was right, you would have exactly the same feeling. Chemicals would rush through your brain, and you'd want to run around the neighborhood, and you'd want to sing and shout, and no matter how much you were fighting with your wife or your husband, no matter how depressed you were about your work situation, no matter how down in the dumps you were, in that moment, you would not be down in the dumps anymore. In that moment, you'd be over the moon. You'd be elated. You'd feel spiritual in that moment. And yet, there are no spirits involved. It's all chemicals. It's all your brain. It's all your biology. So I thought I'd just answer a few questions for you about atheism. I hope that helps you to understand that we're not baby-eating monsters who hate everything and despise Christians and march in straight lines ready to shoot American hillbillies in the Bible Belt. That's not what an atheist is. An atheist is just a human being that doesn't believe in the supernatural. Outside of that, they can believe, or at least stand for, have ideals for pretty much anything. And believe me, there are lots of atheists I think are complete idiots, complete dicks. And I'm like, oh God. So, like, parachute me into a group of atheists, and I'm not necessarily going to have a good time because I don't know anything about those people. Parachute me into a group of humanists, and I'm more likely to know that I'm going to fit in because they all have the same ideal that we should be looking after the human population, we should be spreading the wealth, we should be giving everyone equal rights, we should be uplifting those that can't uplift themselves. Those are great ideals, and they're not atheist ideals. Those are humanist ideals, and I certainly stand for those. So at another podcast, I will chat about humanism and why I think I'm a humanist. Cheers. Catch you next time.